get better from here. Welcome Commissioner Dries to our meeting this morning, and all the staff. So it's good to have you all here. You all received the agenda and the minutes and the financials by email. Are there any questions or comments?
I don't know if the minutes need to reflect that I was here by electronic, by phone, or not, so.
It should, yeah.
They do?
Yes.
This one didn't, I don't think, does it?
Okay, I may have put it later on.
Okay,
I thought they did, but I'll double check.
all right, thank you.
Yeah, it shows at the top that you were here on top of the first page.
Okay.
But yes, we can note that in that
Okay.
first piece, just to make sure it's clear.
Okay, are there any questions or comments in regards to the consent agenda, any of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve it.
Okay, got a motion by
Second.
David, second by Sam. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carried. We have any public comments? Nobody? Do you have anybody that's attending electronically or anything, Nicole, that would like to make a comment?
No.
Okay. Being no public comments, we'll move on to the update from the president. Lana.
Good
it's your
morning.
turn. Good morning.
Project 620 is a new project, manufacturing, that we're assisting. We put out some job postings and assisted them with some other logistical type issues that they've had, and things are moving along rapidly with their project. That is, they're taking over an existing space and adding some additional product and additional staffing. Prospect 420 is a private infrastructure improvement project that we've assisted with utility contacts and giving them additional information to help them move quickly on their project. Prospect 320, we did a conference call with this group back in March, and I have visited with them in the last couple of weeks, and things are starting to pick back up. Obviously, when we first visited with them was before a lot of the shutdown, and now they're getting back into the swing of things and anticipate that they should be making decisions rapidly on what the other additional locations that they need. Prospect 120 is Project Proxima with the Department of Commerce. If you remember, this was one we submitted back in February, and then they requested some additional information in March that we submitted. They requested additional information in June, towards the end of June, that we got to them. And just this week, they've requested some additional information on that project. So we've sent all of that to them, and we'll continue to work closely with them. It was brought to us by the international recruitment team at the Department of Commerce, so we'll keep you posted. Excuse me. Prospect 219, we've not had any action on. Empirical continues to move forward. We're working on they had some easement work that they've been doing, and mostly getting Jenny Barker Road ready to go, as well as getting utilities cemented as to how they're going to access the wastewater treatment plant and so forth. Lots and lots of calls going back and forth with them, and hopefully we'll have all of that ironed out quickly, and then can take the development agreement to the city for signatures. Project Rochester, I did visit with the developers on this. They are working now to get their site plan finalized, updated site plan finalized with all of the different the businesses that they've put in it. They do have some spaces available, so they're gonna get that to us so that we can get it out and start some retail recruitment efforts with that parcel. Value-added agriculture, we have had some follow-up meetings and have met with a couple of the large farmers groups on this, and we'll continue to move forward with it. And outside of that, guys, I think we've obviously started picking up more and more in-person meetings, which is good. It's nice to start getting back into the swing of things. But we did meet with a trailer manufacturer over the last couple of weeks and have met with a group that's looking at putting in another microbrew type establishment. So we'll keep plugging along. Also met with Haskell County, with their representatives came down, and we worked on a couple of housing opportunities that we can help them with. So we'll continue putting those together, and I may be going up as soon as this weekend to present that to the investors they have. So. Any questions?
The trailer, is it a semi-trailer or is it a small trailer?
No.
Semi-trailer?
Yeah. Yep, and they already had, they had quite a bit of their plan worked out as far as they have somebody who can market the trailers for them and sell them for them and so forth. So it's really just a matter of putting together the pieces of the actual manufacturing side of it, so.
So like they totally enclosed, tanker truck, tanker trailers?
They
Can you
wouldn't want
can't
us to
go
talk about that at this
Okay,
point, but
I got you.
yeah,
All right.
sorry.
That's all right.
No.
Just thought I'd ask.
No, you don't know if you don't ask, but
That's right.
they wouldn't want us to talk about that at this point, but
Okay.
yeah, so things are going well there. Childcare is moving along well. We did get approved for the childcare or the community service tax credits through the Department of Commerce. That is a huge step forward for that organization. That'll bring us about $386,000 in revenues that can be utilized for the network. So we've already got the board started on making lists of folks to go sell those tax credits to, and we have our training scheduled with the Department of Commerce on the process of selling them, if you will, next week. So very exciting there. We've helped a couple of other, a church and a couple of other folks who are interested in doing childcare, and we've helped them get things kind of squared away over the last month. So lots of positives happening.
What's the status of the 3rd Street project? Are they getting closer to?
Childcare side is done. So it
Is
is just a matter of getting, we've put in grant applications for all of the classroom startup and the playground areas, and should hear on those this month yet. Once we have those, we've got a couple of the board members are working on some other financial opportunities that are out there right now. So yeah, once we have the lease signed, we can start working there and start filling it up and get ready to open. So we're also working on a couple of things. I don't know if you guys listened to the county commission meeting earlier this week, but they have hired a consultant to help with their CARES Act funding, the spark dollars that are coming down to the local level from the state. And one of the things that the consultant mentioned was the opportunity to perhaps find some funding for childcare. So we're gonna have our presentation put together and before the county administrator, so that hopefully we'll be able to get that in front of the consultants when they're here. They're supposed to be holding meetings next week with various nonprofits. So we'll get that in front of them. And the main focus of the 3rd Street facility, because now of the COVID situation, it's become apparent that we really have to focus on those essential employees' children first, to ensure that we have a spot for those folks to go to make sure that we can keep people working and running our industries. So we feel like that would be a very good reason for the CARES Act dollars to help support that, just simply because it helps us to keep the economy humming along. So we'll have that presentation put before them for next week as well.
Have they been able, they being the board for the child care network, have they been able to find like a director or
Yes.
executive, or they have
Mhm.
some?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we had a board member who served as the interim executive director to allow us to do all of our licensing and all of that type of stuff. But then we did interviews, I sat in on those interviews about 6 weeks ago probably now. And we did get an individual, very highly qualified individual
Good.
on board. So, and she had some flexibility, so was able to stay with her current job until it's time to make the transition over, so, yeah.
Okay. Anyone else got any other questions for Lana? All right. We'll move on to Nicole.
Good morning.
Good morning.
As far as on the community college workforce development side of things, they have hired an instructor for their carpentry program. He was the former industrial arts teacher in Hugoton and was looking to get moved back up here, so I think he'll be good. He's started work and I think hit the ground running. A couple of the Builders Association contractors have met with him. They're impressed. He seems to have lots of ideas and they're moving forward. And also Engineered Truss here in town donated quite a few trusses to the program. You can see them just south of the burn building on the campus. They've already got those up. It's obviously going to be used for their training type thing. So he seems to be moving forward with getting that program up off the ground. I believe that they still are on track to start it this fall. However, it will be strictly for high school students using the, their credit option that they use, their SB 155 funding that they do. It will be that format. They're going to try to test it out with the high school kids first before they open it up to the community college and public to utilize. So kind of do a dry run and see how that goes, and then the next fall open it up. So that's moving along nicely. Youth development at the high school. Jenny and I had a Zoom meeting last week to talk about career fair. And in light of all of the announcements that keep coming down from the state, we just decided that we're going to move forward with a virtual option for the career fair. That doesn't leave us beholden to a particular date that we have to hold it. As long as we get the things around that we need to get around, we can launch the career fair at any time. We're looking at a format that we will have each employer that wants to participate, they will film a short 5-minute video on their job that they're promoting, their day-to-day duties, education requirements if they feel comfortable doing that, and they'll submit it, and we will basically have those on a website, either our website or the high school's website, that the freshmen can go onto and view probably in their mentoring periods and fulfill that requirement that we have for the career fair. We feel like it's an option that hopefully we can use going on. Obviously, we hope to get back into a live situation because the employers really do like the interaction with the kids. We're also going to encourage the employers to go ahead and put their contact information on that video so that if those kids want to reach out to them, and they can still maintain some of that one-on-one contact for questions and whatnot. So it's a little different, but we're doing what we have to do. So we'll move forward with that and get that going. That's all I have. If you guys have questions.
The natural tendencies of career fairs, et cetera, there's 8 or 10 or 12 employers who are always kind of out front and getting it running. The high school has probably 20 career pathways that they have defined. Sometimes it's 16, sometimes it's 25, it's kind of hard to tell. Is there any effort to go back and say, all right, let's take a look at our career pathways? Where are they? Then let's step aside and let's take a look at our critical needs for high wage, high demand, critical needs jobs in our community.
Right.
And do our pathways and our critical needs ever touch?
Right. I feel like Jenny does a really good job of that every year. She kind of just keeps that in her back of her mind of, we didn't really have great enrollment in this pathway this year. Why is it? Is it because the teachers maybe not great, maybe they don't know anything about maybe they don't know anything about the program, maybe we need to do more education on that job choice. So we do evaluate that every year, but just this past year with the Perkins funding, that really caused us to do a deep dive into those programs, that we were really able to go back and say, you know, we could be possibly at risk of losing Perkins funding for this program. So do we need to lose the funding because it's just not a relevant program for us? Is it something that we're still kicking out the students while they may not be employed here, but we are sending them other places to be employed? Graphic design was a perfect example of that. The program's full. However, we, in our Department of Labor data, don't show a huge need in this area for web design. So we really fought to keep web design because we have lots of kids that are interested in it, but most of the time out here, it goes into more of a combined job. It's part of your marketing. It's very few people are hiring just a graphic designer. I think Shannon and I are a perfect example of that. We both share graphic design duties for FCEDC. While you don't think that it's a huge need for us, it does arise in some times where we need it. And so that's just one of those things where Shannon and I have taught ourselves how to do it, and we just do it. Did either of us go to formal school for it? No. But I think that that's a huge part of it. I think kids are interested in it, but when you do look at that and you look at the wage equating, they're going, no, I don't want to do that. I mean, because, you know, their average starting wage is $26,000 a year. Well, when they're freshmen, they think, well, that's great. I'm going to get out of mom and dad's house. This is going to be awesome. And then as they get older, they're like, oh, it's probably not going to pay as many bills as I thought it was going to pay. So I think their ambitions change as they mature and get older. We just had a conversation the other day with a woman that was in talking to us, and she's a high school teacher, and she was sharing her frustration at the fact that so many of these kids still put professional athlete down as what they want to be when they grow up. Oh, I can attest to that. It's still the #1 career choice of those freshmen that take their career cruising. I mean, but as they get older, they realize, oh, that's probably not a relevant dream to have, you know? I mean, not that they couldn't do it, but just maybe be a little bit more realistic in some of your career choices. But yes, they are. I don't know about the state as a whole, but I do feel like Holcomb and Garden really do a good job of making sure that they're offering the correct programs. And I think a lot of that has to do with their close relationships with the college and with us, that they're constantly listening as to, are we providing the right programs? Are these things that we're providing irrelevant? So
I'm really glad to hear that that's going on. Now, that's one half of the equation. Now we got the people out here that's gonna hire someone. Are we finding a way to bridge that gap, to engage the business people through any kind of a local business organization or individual outreach? Because no matter what we do on the educational side, if it doesn't connect to this other side,
right,
it doesn't work. And you know, we've got to get beyond the normal 10 or 12 employers and be able to reach out and get the rest of them. You know, they're always sitting over here on this side of the fence saying that educational system doesn't work for me. Well, it's because they haven't shared what they want from that educational system.
Well, and I think the career fair helps bridge some of that gap, but on that other side too, you're faced with our workforce challenges as a community as you end up with a lot of turnover in those positions, even that are coming to present to the high school kids. And so sometimes there's not a lot of continuity, and you may have had, you know, XYZ company here last year and they were great, and then lo and behold, next year they don't show up. Well, it's just because that chain of command has changed. That person has went on elsewhere. That email got lost somewhere. So that's a challenge for us. It's kind of a constant thing that you're just always watching. But on the other side, I feel like the high school and the college are doing a really good job of reaching out to the businesses to encourage them to get involved with those advisory committees, because that's really the way that the business can make a change. That's their opportunity to come in and say, you may be offering these competencies, but they're not equating to what I need. And that's that constant with the state, which Bob, you know this, they have that set list of competencies that they have to meet. They can't take away, but they can always add. So a lot of these classes have gotten competencies that are 3, 4, 5 pages long. And a lot of that's because those employers have went in and said, those are all fine and great to have, but these are really the core things that I need this kid to know. So I think that that's the opportunity that the business community has to really put their input in. And as we move forward with youth development and move forward with the career fair, I think that that message is getting out to the business community. But like I said, it's a double-edged sword in that we have the turnover on one side, and so it's a constant, we have to make sure we're communicating with our business community, so.
Well, and it doesn't have to be finalized here, but I think we need to sit down and say, all right, how can we help drive the business side of this? Get our other friendly organizations in the community and start working that, because without a team effort, you know, I love the whole change of philosophy in the last year and a half at the educational side, but we haven't had it on the business side, and it's time. Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
Steve, did you have anything you wanted to share with the board as far as the things you're working on? We don't have you on the actual agenda, but.
Yeah, would you like to share what you're actually working on?
Well, it's a secret.
It's a secret.
Yeah, I could tell you, but
This is a
I'd
good,
have to kill you.
well, this is a good place to share secrets, so
It is?
go right
Okay.
ahead.
Okay. One of the things that I'm doing is we're looking around the city for pieces of land that might be suited for residential development. So I'm doing mock-ups of single-family, multi-family combinations on various tracts around town, so that if at some point we actually have a developer that comes in and says, I want to build houses in Garden City, we can say, well, we've got these things, what do you like? How can we help you make it real from that point? And then just working on all the stuff that comes in from commerce and all the other walk-in business that needs help.
Do we still have a number of infill lots within the city, or have they pretty well been developed and
There's slim to none.
close to getting them all filled in?
Yeah. What we gotta take a look at is some way to rehab some of the older existing housing that may have fallen into disrepair. What kind of programs can we get rolling to get those things up as a way of some infill, if you will, without having to do a complete build of a piece of property.
I know you drive around town and you don't see near as, you know, near the empty lots that you used to see around it. So they're getting pretty well built in.
Yeah.
Very good.
Any questions for Steve? It's good to have you with us.
Thanks.
It's good to be with you.
Okay,
Thanks, Steve.
thank you. Shannon, share your wisdom with us this morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First thing I'll talk about is just quickly the consulting services. I'm doing a project with the Problem Gambling Task Force that comes out every couple of years. So just normal analysis of awareness of health issues for problem gambling and stuff like that. So that project's almost done. With social media report, y'all have a social media report. I'll quickly go over it. GreatGardenCity.com has about 292 visitors a day. The top story, this is the first time we've had this before. The top story for July was the Wildwood Park opens, which was also the top story in June. So that same article was the top story for both years. So it's getting some attraction, looks like. And then also the fifth story that was on the top 5 stories on Great Garden City is that Fortune Elkhart, that the guy who's on the TV show. So it was site is ranking well on Google. So you get these stories that just bubble up every once in a while once you get embedded into Google and people start searching for things and our site comes up. This is a good indicator that that's happening. For the Facebook pages, Garden State Journal is averaging 771 visitors a day. Top story with the library having curbside pickup now. Second was Barron's Steakhouse having open house. And then Greater Garden City's Facebook page at 391 visitors a day. And all these numbers are a little bit down from last month. But I was thinking about this, and you don't want to have them go down, but if you still add them all up, we're still reaching over 1,000 people a day, which, if we're talking about a community like this, that's still reaching a pretty good amount of people every day. So still good that that's going on. So that's my social media report. And then my other thing is, so you've seen this map before. This is the GDP from 2018, and we're dark blue. And y'all weren't excited about us being dark blue, as I was. And dark blue means that our GDP for 2018 was over $2 billion. It's like 2.1 something billion dollars. And so since you all weren't as excited about getting to the dark blue, the $2 billion, I decided I could do a little demonstration about what $2 billion looks like. So I'm gonna go over here because it's gonna be a flat surface. So sorry for the thing that's a bunch of open mess. So to demonstrate what $2 billion looks like, we can take a $100 bill and then stack it. So you get a stack of $100 bills, and I'm going to illustrate first what our funding looks like, so we know what our funding looks like as FCEDC, and then I'll do a demonstration of what $2 billion looks like. So if we take our funding, this is the funding we get from the community college. This is a stack of $100 bills. Okay, so that's $25,000 right here. And then here's our funding from Holcomb. There's $30,000. And then here is our funding from the City of Garden City. And here's our funding from the county. So you take $100 bills and you stack them up, and this is what our funding is every year. So very nice. I'd like to take a stack of $100 bills like this myself, but this is our funding. So what does $2 billion look like? And so did some calculations, and I said, hey, I actually need to go talk to the co-op. So I went out to the co-op and go to that next slide, please. It said, well, a grain elevator is a good way to measure this. So I took my stack out there, and you can see we barely make it to the top of the, well, we don't even make it to it. We make it almost to the top here of our funding area. Well, if we say how much $1 billion is, well, we're going to have to back up a little bit. So go to the next. Okay, and so I don't know if you've seen grain elevators, but when you actually get up to them, they're pretty tall. So I had to back up a little bit more. Okay, so here you can see, so here's a grain elevator. Here's an example of a stack of $100 bills. So if we take $100 bills and we go up, we're having a demonstration of how much $2 billion is. Unfortunately, this isn't tall enough. What we need to have to illustrate $2 billion is a stack of 76 grain elevators if we're stacking $100 bills on top of each other. So I'm gonna have to angle this right. So here's our funding right here. It comes up to right here. You can go to the next slide. I have it on the next slide as well, but you can't really tell.
Hurry back.
I lined it up pretty well.
David, does it fit? Is he turning a corner?
Yeah, he's going around the corner. Nice curve.
So every year, Finney County is producing $2 billion worth of products, services, and goods. And that's taking a stack of $100 bills and taking it 76 grain elevators tall. So when we go back to that first picture, one more. Oh my gosh, look at that, we're dark blue, that's amazing. But this is a demonstration of the kind of output that our county is doing every single year. And I mean, that's, and being part of that is ag and all the different components that we know, but I thought that was really interesting when you actually start computing how big that number is. It really is interesting. I mean, again, our little stack there doesn't even make it to this black line here on just this one little bigger. So that's my demonstration of $2 million.
Once you're dark blue, obviously you can't get bluer. But
Well,
how relatively compared of the 10 or 12 dark blues up there, however many there are we in the middle of those dark blues?
No, we are on the very end of the.
Or the baby
very,
dark
very
blue.
edge of the dark blues.
Okay.
This was the first time when we divided it, and we could, well, and you go look at this on other maps. I mean, if it's a Kansas City-based map, they're gonna make it so their color is the only one that's the darkest,
Right,
and everybody else is so far away.
right.
When I'm doing my coloring, I'm trying to get it where we at least have some stratification between all of Kansas. Obviously, Kansas City, those counties, I don't remember exactly how high they are, but they're significantly higher than 2 billion.
So can you do it per capita? All of a sudden, we start catching up?
Yes, and I don't have that slide, and we have presented that slide before, and that's one of our really big slides that we have about the value of people in western Kansas. And we've actually been giving this to industrial and retail projects. Because if you go look at that, and I'll bring it back next time because it's such an important slide. This half of Kansas is the one per capita that's producing the most. And actually the people that are producing the least amount per capita are those people in the Kansas City and the Wichita area. So even though they have more per capita than, we'll say, Kearney County, or more total than Kearney County, per capita, Kearney County is outpacing them. So I'll bring that next time and show that again. And then
Interesting.
you can all be like thoroughly excited about those columns as well.
Very good, interesting.
All right.
And if you're not, he's gonna keep bringing it back.
Well, I thought I might just be doing, instead of making graphs on this, I'm just gonna start building my own graphs out of boxes.
Physical 3D
Physical,
graphs.
it takes longer, but maybe it's more exciting than Excel.
And your
Thank you.
GDP includes all agriculture, natural resources,
Every
manufacturing, all the revenue sources generated within Finney County.
Correct, yep, that's everything.
So is agriculture the highest? Is that what?
Well, it would have to be.
So what's in the breakdown that they do, manufacturing is the highest. But we all know that the largest component of manufacturing is
Beef.
is the beef and the agriculture that goes with it. So indirectly, yes. Specifically, it's not counted that way, but it is by far the biggest if you include the beef manufacturing and the milk manufacturing and all that kind of stuff. So
One of the other things that we've done, I probably should have put it in here too, just so you guys could see it. We did have the Department of Agriculture work up. We were working with them on a project that we submitted an RFP for, and they came back and said, you know, you guys really have that whole southwest corner that is really yours. I mean, that when we talk to people about how do we access, unlock potential in that southwest corner, we know that we go to Finney County, and Finney County kind of has that reach into the rest of it. They said we really ought to complete an analysis of the economic impact of agriculture in those counties, and it's pretty impressive. So they just titled it the Greater Garden City Region, and it is really falls pretty much in line with our Greater Garden City trade map that we created when we created that website. So we'll bring that the next time, just so you guys have some better ideas about just how much wealth is created in this quadrant of the state. It's pretty impressive.
Also like to ask another question on your presentation last month on the COVID in relationship of quote-unquote deaths versus positive tests. And you were explaining that we had this factual picture. Our percentages were right in line, whereas Sedgwick County and a lot of the ones back east were nowhere near right, but when they started testing, they would start coming into that model. Based on what you've seen in the last month, opposite what we might have read in the paper this morning. You know, it's still gloom and doom here, and yet deaths and hospitalizations still aren't happening, and yet, woe is me, everything is positive. I think we need to continue updating that so that we can share the rest of the story. It would be really interesting to follow up the health department report with, here's what's happening in the rest of the state on what the real numbers are. Because when you take a sample that's 6, 8, 10 weeks old and do the percentages, and yet in the last month, there's 1 case, 4 cases, 3 cases, 2 cases. We haven't had 100 in the last month, and yet, oh, it's still terrible. I think we've got to stay on that, or we're going to lose
And we are.
the vision of
It's
ourselves.
on social media at least once, if not twice a week, we put the update out.
Okay.
So, and it does have a huge following. We have a lot of folks who actually message in and say, hey, when does the update go up? So
Yeah.
they're watching it.
It would be good to slide that into the printed publication about every other week.
We could sure try.
I understand.
And just for reference, we're right around, we've just been hovering right around 20 active cases total. So that's that 10-day, anybody who has a 10-day plus day of symptomatics. We're about right around 20, 24, I think is what we're at. And for comparison, right now at Johnson County, we're estimating it's about 1,700. So we definitely see a difference in measured active cases right now.
So basically the percentages on that bar graph going across, the testing line is going out, but it's catching up with the death rate to where the percentages are proving correct, that 4/10.
They are catching up with the expected rate that we'd expect from the fatalities, although they still are getting fatalities, which means that although they are getting more testing in and more positives, they still are, it's not like they've caught up to the things in the past. It's just been catching up to the current
Okay.
situation. And you're correct about our local numbers. I don't believe we've had a fatality for a while now. I think we're still at 10.
It's been 10 for a long while.
For a while. And our hospitalization numbers are 3 or 4.
You know, and it's really frustrating because we understand they're still canceling elective surgeries because it could happen. And it could happen because somebody said we got a lot of tests that are positive. And, you know, that's a phenomenal impact. And it's bad on St. Catharines, but think what it's doing to these rural communities on their hospitals. Wow.
Yeah, the long-term impacts
Oh,
are
my,
frightening.
yeah. Okay, thank you.
One more thing while you're there. Our GDP for the last 10 years, related to this thing, our GDP for the last 10 years on average is growing 1 grain elevator's tall worth of $100 bills every year for the last 10 years. So we've added 10 more grain elevators over the last 10 years to this. So something else, if we ever need to talk about our economy and grain elevators, like, we've got it.
You'll never look at a grain elevator the same way again either.
You'll have
Very
to go
good.
down to co-op again and have them build some more elevators.
Right? Yeah, we don't have enough.
Sounds great. Thank you. Good visual.
Thank you, Shannon. And this is, the discussion is good, and I appreciate Bob bringing this up because, you know, we track this and we think that Finney County has got 24 cases, active cases that we're working each day. And I noticed that now Sedgwick County has started to track the active cases, and they're over 1,000 a day. So, you know, it's amazing that they've finally got where they're testing, and they've figured out what's really happening. And for a long time, you know, we were 1,500 and something like that, and Sedgwick County was 700 or 800. Well, that has drastically changed now, and they've figured out that we've got this major problem, and they're trying to figure out hospital-wise and everything else. And here again, you know, they've had almost 30 deaths, and we've had 10, and I still think that that's a major kudos to our public health team in Finney County, doctors and hospital that, they're doing a great job. And it's not any place that I'd recommend you go visit just to, spend a little time up there, but, you do appreciate what they're doing and, how well they're doing it, so just food for thought. Okay, new business, well, we've kind of touched on this, you wanna touch on our COVID update?
Yeah, again, we are updating that active case count. Shannon has just put it on a rotation, so when KDHE puts out their new data on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, he goes in and updates the report. So he chose to utilize the KDHE data because it was the only one that we knew would be the same regardless of what counties we were doing comparables with. So they say they updated at 9 o'clock on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, but that's just not even true. Sometimes it's noon or...
Now they changed it to 12:30.
Oh, good, well, that's good. So, but it's still not always there, so.
Yeah, that means sometimes 4
Sometimes it's a
o'clock.
little later when we get them done, but we are doing them. We continue in all the discussions we have to talk about the fact that cumulative case counts are not going to be helpful in the long term. In the short term, I get it. It was the easiest way for them to track and get the information out there. But the fact is, this is not an ongoing condition. You don't have it forever once you get it. And so the idea that cumulative case counts somehow are gonna tell the long-term story of this crisis is just completely inaccurate, false, as Shannon would say. So we continue to push for the idea that we need to really, as we get a little further out from the crisis points of it, we really need to be talking through who was impacted the most, what type of workplaces were the most impacted, what type of living arrangements, looking at this not only from an economic development standpoint, but from a community development standpoint, it is gonna be extremely important that we know how to avoid something like this impacting our community going forward. We would tell you, based on what we're looking at right now, the pandemic has acted about the way we anticipated it would when this first started, when we first started late in February talking about how we were going to track the cases and how we were going to watch to see if our community was doing it right. Pretty much everything has fallen in the way we would have anticipated and the way we believed it would when we went into the pandemic. So our theory that our isolation and our distance from large urban areas would ultimately prove to be a benefit has been absolutely correct. We continue to see the case climbs where people live on top of one another. They continue to see significant climb in cases, and we don't. So we do believe that our theory was correct, and we are fine-tuning marketing as we go and as we submit new projects and RFPs on projects. We're submitting that data that, while this is fresh in everybody's mind, cumulative counts aside, if you truly look at the disease progression in our community, we can show you that the fact that we are a little more isolated and live a little further apart from one another has absolutely been a benefit for us. So we'll continue, if nobody else is gonna do the hard work of creating good, usable statistics, we'll continue to do that. We feel like it's imperative that we do that, as you said, Bob, for a lot of reasons, but it's imperative that our businesses have a better understanding of what their risks truly are. And folks coming into our community, as Shannon has said a couple of times, we've been back to pre-COVID travel rates for about a month now, maybe even a little more than that, actually. So folks have got their confidence back. They're coming back. We would tell you that's largely based on the fact that we're getting accurate information out there for them and not just the big scary cumulative numbers that the state's putting out. So that's all I have.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to keep in front of the public, the fact that, if you've had a cumulative number 1,500 to 2,000 or whatever that number is, but you've only got 1% of that as active cases, you know, that's a pretty good compliment for the community and the activity that goes on. I think it's also important that, you know, not only local people know that, but continue to practice their safety measures, but the business communities for all the western half of Kansas, where we draw a major part of our trade area from, that those people know that, you know, Finney County has got those things going in a positive direction.
Yeah, we
for
would
us.
also say that we have had a lot of anecdotal conversations about mask wearing in Finney County, and it's very interesting listening to folks, especially from outside of Garden City, who come in and say, wow, Garden City people do a good job of wearing their masks. You know, everywhere we go, if we go to the stores, if we go, you know, people are wearing their masks, and that's cool. You know, in a lot of places it's required, but in a lot of places where it isn't required, we're still seeing pretty strong mask wearing, just as a general rule. Shannon and I both do counts everywhere we go. We started out by saying, yeah, I'm pretty sure it was over half the people were wearing them, and then we said, okay, let's just actually count. So we're actually counting how many people are wearing masks where they're not required to, and we're still seeing large percentages of people are choosing to wear masks. Do we know that it works? No. But do we know that it doesn't work? No. So I think as much as anything, it's not a matter of, gee, these people follow rules well. I don't think that's what it really is. I think it's just a matter of the people in our community are really good about taking care of one another. And even if it's something that we can't guarantee is making a difference, we're choosing to do that. And we're not hearing that about a lot of the other communities across the state. So I think it's again another positive about our community, and the fact that we look out for one another just in general. So kind of cool information to have.
Okay. Any questions? Any questions for any of the staff, anybody? If not, we don't have any old business at this time. We want an executive session for...
I can certainly update you guys on a few things if you're interested.
Okay. Let's take about a couple-minute pause here, and then we'll take 15 minutes for an executive session. We'll come back into order at like 8:20, and plan on being out at 8:35. I hear a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So, second.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Further discussion? All in favor of the motion say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Okay, we will adjourn and reconvene at 8:20.
On next month's agenda, let's take a look at putting